All right, we are live.
We are live.
Welcome to the Millennial Experience podcast. So this week, we were just talking about how Amy Coney Barrett,
Yeah, I haven't gotten her name yet.
how she, what do you think of her?
I mean, I saw only partial questioning. I haven't actually seen it all, but it's my understanding she's either on the fence or against Roe v. Wade, which is, of course, a woman's right to choose.
Well, I watched specific people question her, like
Mm-hmm.
Cory Booker
Mm-hmm.
and Kamala Harris and a few other like people. And she definitely in the past, like they brought up like quotes from her and stuff that she wrote in different articles and things about how she's absolutely thinks that Roe v. Wade was like the wrong decision. And it's so strange watching them question her. Like you can look up now, there's compilations already on YouTube of just like minutes and minutes of them asking her really simple questions. Like, do you think a president should always agree to a peaceful transition of power? And she just will dodge the question.
Right.
She refuses to answer.
Right.
She refuses to answer questions about whether or not like Roe v. Wade was a good decision.
Right.
And her reasoning is like, well, you know, I would have to like look at the case specifically and go into the specifics of the case, hear both sides and discuss it with my colleagues. But that's her answer to every single one of these questions. Like,
Right.
and it's just so strange because in the past, like you can ask questions like, do you think abortion should be legal or illegal? Or,
Right.
and those,
It's like you're 1 out of 9 judges. Whatever you think personally might not be the thing that passes, even if it was something that you decided to judge
yeah.
on a personal basis. You still have another 8 judges that are also doing the same thing. But it makes sense, though, where if you do have someone who is obviously leaning towards right or left ideas, yeah, I think the assumption is safe that they're going to have personal opinions on that.
And it's okay. Like during RBG's initiation, like she was answering those kinds of questions. She was just giving her opinion on what her thoughts were behind these types of issues.
Right.
My issue with this judge, it's like she just won't give us any idea of how she feels or how she's going to vote about anything.
Right.
And she's claiming that it's because it would be against the rules, like she's not allowed to go into specifics on any of these cases, and so she just blows off every single question that's important. It's really frustrating because initiating someone into this position is super, super important. Like, she's going to be a Supreme Court justice for life, and we don't even get to hear her opinion on very, very important issues.
Well, it seems, though, that her opinions are also been looked up historically.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I think if she wanted an opportunity to clear up a past opinion, I think she had it. Otherwise, if she decided to leave it to us to research, and that's what we find, then she leaves it to us to assume that that's what it is.
And I feel so out of control in this whole situation. Mm-hmm. It's really depressing.
Yeah.
Like the fact that what's his name? The Senate Majority Leader,
Mitch McConnell.
Not Mitch McConnell. So he is the Senate Majority Leader, but the other guy, Lindsey Graham.
Oh.
Like you can hear him. You can look up past video of him saying like, if for some reason
if it opens
it's
up
in the election year and it opens up,
words
you can use my words against me. We will not vote someone in until after the next president is elected. And it's not just him. I mean, there's tons of Republicans that you can look up saying that. And now they're just like, what are they even, how do you think they're feeling on the inside about the fact that they said that? And now they're the ones specifically that are pushing for this. Right. It's just baffling and amazing. The dishonesty, the disgusting amount of corruption. I get it. That the fact that they want to quickly get this super conservative judge in. Totally understand that. Why the hell, though, did they say all that in the past? What was their And now what's their response to when people ask them, hey, but you said this. Yeah. Look at this video.
I agree. There's I think we're doing a bad job educationally in teaching our historic roots, but more importantly, our historic mistakes. And not only that, but also teaching people as early as grade school or high school about the demographic shift, where there's a balance out of overpopulation and it evens out. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's important in the demographic, I think I'm saying it right, demographic transition. Okay. It's whenever a nation is beginning to develop, and at first there's like a high population, and then there's a population drop as people's money, as their what's the word?
The economy goes up.
Not their economy, but their affluence goes up. Mm-hmm. And the more people who are affluent, the more affluent you are, the less children you have. And that's where you see developing nation and how it balances out, because then they start having less kids and they also have more money, which is where the United States is. It's that balance. We have like 2.5 kids per family-ish, which is why we have to bring in so much immigrant work, because the labor needs can't be kept up with just the reproduction that happens here by citizens. But anyway, sorry, I think I branched off too far. There's not enough understanding of how important it is for a woman to be able to access that kind of health care, because of how important it is for that transition to happen. It can speed it up. We can get there faster. And we don't have to backslide into a nation that just makes it so women have to have however many kids, whatever man is involved with decides to make them have, or multiple. Whether it's accident or intentional, it doesn't matter. I think that's totally unfair. That's just totally unfair. We should be looking out for our sisters around the world. Like there's still like a lot of mistreatment.
The currently. Fact that now we're the concern is that this woman, this affluent woman, is the one that may be making the decision. It's going to come down to her vote as to whether or not all of these other women have a right to choose what happens to their bodies. And it's so bizarre. Bizarre.
I think the reason, like one of the arguments I know I hear is where it's like, you know, if you need to get an abortion, then it's not coming out of my pocket. And it's like, yeah, but the thing you don't understand is overpopulation is everybody's problem. And it can easily happen in a place. It can start happening just like in one city or one town. Yeah. But overpopulation is a huge issue, and we should look at it like it's an investment in the future. It's not just some freaking person taking advantage of getting an abortion. What a fucking horrible thing to assume that somebody just casually uses abortions. What the fuck? That's what a ridiculous thing to say.
I know.
It's a freaking public health issue. It's also a societal issue, and it's a good move in the direction of equality that we demonstrate. We're taking care of our sisters here. We don't just freaking treat them like crap.
And so is that what the argument is, though? Because to me, I feel like the argument is more about, should it be allowed for someone to get an abortion? Not should the taxpayers have to pay for it. Like,
right, if it's murder,
that's a separate question.
Right.
Like, I feel like the issue comes down to, we can't kill these babies, these poor innocent babies that deserve life. Rather than, from there, we can talk about whether or not people should have to pay for it. But I think the key question that seems to be the hottest debated topic is that whether or not it should be allowed at all because of the morality, ethical implications.
I think the importance of Roe v. Wade is exactly the progressive thinking of it, its impact on an economy, where you don't let overpopulation just happen. People still people still will have children, but they'll have the ones they would like to have, the ones that won't become some sort of issue or something. And either way, I wouldn't know. This is their decision. It's their and their physician's decision, their significant other. That's up to them. In fact, there's no reason for us to even get into it, like, into why an abortion happens. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's a healthcare issue. And we should all just remember it's a societal thing. Like this has to do with being a progressive, affluent country. And we also need to demonstrate equality by showing this, by not discriminating against the reality that that women still have to live with in this world. Like, just fucking it sucks. So let's try to demonstrate some freaking sympathy and just say that's fine if they know what they need to do. There's not going to be some freaking detriment to society because of it. No. Nobody is running to go get one. That's ridiculous.
It's got to be a super difficult decision.
Yes, it's an incredibly
difficult process.
Yeah.
It has all kinds of health implications on its own.
Exactly.
No one wants to be getting abortions.
Exactly.
But sometimes, it should either way. Like you said, it's between them and their doctor.
It's between them and the doctor.
It's a healthcare issue.
Mm-hmm. And if we're a society that's really gonna come together as one and show each other sympathy, no matter what kind of minority you are or who you are, this is also a good step. That people look at this country and they're like, dude, they hook it up for the females there. They really think about them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's good. And I think that is healthy for society, especially a society that comes from such a misogynistic species. Seriously.
Yeah, and
we got to be better.
Of course, you and I's opinion on this means almost nothing, which is what I wish people would understand also. It's like the fact that we're talking about this, basically what our point is going to be overall is that this isn't up to us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can discuss what we're debating is whether or not it should be up to you and I or Congress or anybody else. It should not be up to a bunch of men to decide.
I honestly, there should be some sort of educational rundown of what the judges have, because I really don't know how you can make judgment calls that affect such a large amount of people without having taken even just the basic sciences. Maybe that seems like a high fucking standard, but I think that's the fucking minimum. I think that's the absolute minimum before you start really going, okay, my critical thinking works. No, but the tools are knowledge in itself. The critical thinking is putting it all together, which is what a judge is really good at. But how well do they know biology, chemistry, mathematics, and physics? Do you know what I'm saying?
Point, yeah.
And so that's kind of like the thing where biology would help you understand overall communities, populations, and stuff like that. Chemistry would give you the understanding of issues that have to do with that. Like climate change would be nice for the judges to be chemists, right? You'd see a lot of things change. And so that's what I mean. I think that should be the absolute minimum for people who are going to have a freaking lifetime appointment and are going to make huge across the land judgments. It's insane, but we gotta freaking want that. Do we have to make amendments? Do we have to change because things have to start working out for us right now in a society that's just in the future now? The spirit of the founders was just to not have a monarchy. We need to focus on that. We know what else is important. We know the economy is important to us.
But that was the tippy top of what they understood to be what we need to avoid.
Right. It was just that the basics. You avoid that. You're supposed to try to avoid creating a society that thinks they're getting what they want, but they're actually getting a monarchy. We just have to make sure we remember that was the original spirit. And we're also progressing really fast with technology, so you can't... If you have to change a little verbiage to make things make sense and also make it clear, geez, doesn't seem like there's so many freaking wormholes through law and stuff. Just in case you are the kind of person who needs to not be guilty, or where stakes are high for you not to be guilty. Yeah. And so there's enough loopholes for you to not be guilty. That sucks.
Yeah.
That's fucking shitty. That's why you need people who think right. Like, whenever you hear scientists speak, they know exactly what they're saying. Because they already have it in their heads and they've already thought about it. This isn't some line or anything like that. Like, this is really coming out of a brain who has seen the evidence, or at least thought enough about it. You know, if it has to do with planets and stuff, you have to look through it through a telescope. But if you're doing microscope things, yeah, you are a direct observer as a scientist. And when you're telling us this, you're saying it as someone who has seen the information firsthand.
Right.
And interprets it educationally with implications. If you have to make sure you're saying you're implying something, or that something is possible, or that something did happen. You see what I'm saying? The communication needs to be really clear, which is what judges are really good at. Like I said, which is like, imagine now if they were if they had science-based knowledge going into the job. Right. They'd be freaking incredible people. It'd be almost unanimous, the decisions across, almost, I would say, like all the time when it came to things.
Yeah. Because
it'd be coming out of knowledge-based criteria and critical thinking.
Yeah. And that's why when you hear those kinds of statistics, like 99% of scientists agree that climate change is caused by humans. It's because if you really are using science effectively, and you're using the scientific method, and you're trying to discredit other scientists.
Right.
That's the whole purpose.
Like, or proving yourself wrong.
Yeah.
Which is an honest
You're
thing
putting
to do.
your work out there. You're laying it out in these papers and studies. And other scientists then can come along. Their goal is to try to disprove what you're putting out. Right. And if none of them can do it, that's when it becomes a solidified theory in science. Right. You cannot do that with the Bible. You can't do that with all of this pseudoscience about myths climate and change. Stuff like that. That's what a lot of people don't realize. Like Ricky Gervais said, if you were to take all the Bibles, all the religious textbooks in the world, and burn them all, and
all the science books too,
and all the science books, the science would all come back exactly the same, and none of the religious texts would come back the same.
No. Should I keep talking?
And it's just disappointing that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, all of the amazing things she did in her life, she fought so hard for people's rights. And it's just really sad that the next person to come along is probably going to completely undo single-handedly every single thing that she did, all the positive things that she did. Right. And that's the scariest part about our country right now. It's like, it feels like about half the people in our country are really happy about that. Like, they just absolutely loathed everything that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was doing for this country. Right. And the other half was like in full support. And it feels weird to be on one side and to see so many people on the other side, and to have absolutely no comprehension of, I mean, I guess I can comprehend if I really try to put myself in their shoes, of a super, super conservative religious person that believes wholeheartedly that
every life is,
that being gay is a sin.
Okay. Abomination.
It's an abomination. You were born gay and commanded to be straight. And that a cluster of cells inside of a womb is somehow a life that is up to you to decide whether or not this woman has to bring it into this world and then take care of it on her own without government support for 18 years.
Or more.
So it's like, I guess I can see where they're coming from if they're really in that state of mind. It's just really, it's a scary time.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The approach from that side understandably is from deep, deep belief. And you know what? Like, what a great attitude to have, right? Like to really think life is precious. I think they need to define when they say all life is precious, and make sure that all life, early on or later on, is actually being treated or seen as or spoken about as something that's precious. Then I think their attitude just needs to be more objectively consistent. You know what I'm saying? But also, I think educationally, we need to realize societies, they flow. Things happen to them. Like the same kind of things happen to societies across history, and we have to understand that they happen to all societies. We're living at a pretty great point where we're like, you know, pretty modern, and luckily some of our founders were freaking awesome at science, and they were able to like think progressively and write it down, make sure that was in law. But if the numbers in Demon Haunted World, for example, are right, and they were numbers that came from the 80s about the educational system, I don't know how far you've gotten, but have you gotten to the chapter where he writes essays about people, 5th graders who responded to the essay he wrote about knowledge, about being science?
So, no.
Oh man, it's gonna upset you so much. I won't ruin anything about it.
Okay.
But you'll know what I'm talking about when you get there. If that kind of stuff is true, and people who were in 5th grade at that time had that attitude and nobody adjusted it, then the backsliding he was worried about would be something that's true. I am a little bit more hopeful about it because people tend to have a more positive attitude about science when confronted about it, because the first thing is like when when you bring up science, people are probably thinking about like the boring ass class in school, when in reality science is what frees your mind, like really frees your mind to think actually freely, not locked in, because your mind isn't locked with beliefs you just take as fact. Your mind it flows with whatever evidence that you see and understand. That's what sets you free. Because now you can take the world in as it is, and you don't have to force it to conform, and you don't have to make up stories to explain this or fucking say ridiculous things because of that. You don't have to do that with science. It really will set you free. And what I mean by science is knowledge in the way of thinking. It's not just fucking facts. Anyone can remember facts, but like if you're not putting them together well, they almost mean nothing. You're just like a parrot who's just repeating what you've heard. But that's not critical thinking, and knowing all those facts is not going to mean anything. You're going to sound like one of those people who really just wants to talk about what you've seen and heard. You're not going to sound like someone who's really teaching and trying to make you understand. There's a different attitude with teachers and educators than there is with know-it-alls.
Yeah, I agree. And like I was saying, like that's the beauty of science. It's like the way that it sets you free is because it doesn't have to fall on your opinion or your belief anymore.
You don't have to force anything.
You don't have to have any faith in anything. Mm-hmm. Faith is a really, really horrible pathway to truth.
Yeah. You don't have to suck it up when you thought something was supposed to happen but didn't, and now you're sitting there thinking in your head for an explanation.
Yeah. And forcing one. Finding one, and then just, going.
That seems
finding
hard.
A way to sleep that night and just.
Yeah, because it seems hard.
Something.
Because in the end, you're either satisfied or you're like a false satisfaction. No, sorry. You're either unsatisfied or a false satisfaction. Because in the end, you're like, you fucking make things up. That's why people don't go deeper into their research, or that's why they ignore like a science show that comes on. They really don't want to face it, because the day you confront a well-structured sentence that's easy to understand, that breaks down a deep belief you had in the universe, that's the day
really hard.
That's the day that you've accepted that you contort things if you decide to keep believing.
Yeah.
That's the day you realize how much you contort things to try to make sure that you feel sure that you're right.
I think, and that's one of the problems is like trying to think back to that kind of like precise moment where my brain accepted and understood that was one of the most humbling and like difficult things to feel that I've ever felt in my life.
It takes getting used to, as what I would say.
You're admitting to yourself in that moment that you were fooled. Yeah. You were mistaken. Yeah. Your mind deceived you. Yeah. And that you're flawed. You are absolutely flawed, and that you are easily fooled. Yeah. And admitting that to yourself, I think, is the
hardest thing.
That's the part that's stopping people from doing it when they're faced with direct facts in front of their face, is because you're telling yourself that you're not this brilliant person you thought you were.
I think Carl Sagan, would write that it's hard for people to confront their ignorance, and it's true. And honestly, that's why the attitude that science gives you about curiosity and learning, never stop learning, that's what takes that away. That feeling of being hurt because you didn't know anything. No, you're a lifelong learner. You're constantly gonna learn anything. Why at one point? Who's convinced so many people that you hit a certain age and you're supposed to either have learned everything or start pretending like you fucking know everything? Come the fuck on, please. We need to look at this like some sort of fucking mental issue. We can't do this. Stop pretending. Like speak assertively about the things you do understand and have experience about. Be silent about the other things, but then be a lifelong learner. If you really do want to see if by the time you die you can learn fucking everything, which I fucking highly doubt, you can try, but otherwise there's no need. Everyone should have the attitude of humility when it comes to your knowledge. We fucking know nothing. Monkeys fucking with their finger on a nuclear fucking trigger? What the fuck? Yeah. We need to start relaxing. We don't know that much. And we need to start having a more humble attitude towards our technology, because it's way more advanced than us. At this point, the simplest thing, a calculator, is fucking smarter. Yeah. Can do way crazier mathematics than your brain can.
And nowadays, like, a calculator's blown out of the water is so insane.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what you can do on
for the people that like forecast the weather, and the computers that forecast the weather, they do trillions of calculations every second. Yeah. From all over the planet, and these little different squares of like area in order to calculate what size a hurricane is going to be that year, or when a rainstorm's coming to a specific town. Trillions of calculations per second. We're nothing.
Yeah. What makes me think too, what humbles me, first of all, are fucking scientific heroes. Those who invented algebra and calculus. And what makes me what makes me think back with technology is all the mathematicians of the past, and all of the scribbling on scrolls, and all of the fucking ink they were using because they had to write down the formulas, and what they would think of us and our intelligence. Going, look, we have these calculators, the ones with all of the freaking symbols where you just hit this and it turns the one into this crazy decimal number that is, whatever, squared or anything, cubed and stuff like that. And they would assume, gosh, everybody must be fucking smart. And it's like, no, we think way less than even you 2,000 years ago, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. We don't know. They teach us, and we do have more in-depth knowledge about the universe, but like our mathematics in our own brain walking around, fucking sucks.
We're very reliant on calculators these days,
which is fine. Look, it's fine having the technology that helps you do it, but make sure people are still that they're still curious enough to want to do things that would require it, because now you have a calculator and it makes it easier now. Have you seen that picture of the girl? I forgot her name, but she was the one who hand wrote all the coding that went into the Apollo spacecraft, and she's standing next to a stack of papers. It's like, dude, holy shit, holy shit! And now we have technology that can condense that down and make it simpler for us. And we're not doing fucking greater things? Come on. What a fucking shame.
Speaking of coding, how cool would it be to have Ryan Yap on the podcast?
I would like to have him. There's multiple people I've been thinking now.
I'm going to text him and try to get him on.
Okay, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. Awesome.
Have you heard of Benford's Law?
No, I haven't heard of Benford's Law.
So there's this law. This guy figured it out, and his last name was Benford. I can't remember his first name. But he was sitting in this observatory, and he was, before calculators, like hundreds of years ago, there used to be these books that people could actually look through to like find multiplications of huge numbers. And it was just like a huge thick book where you could flip to the page of like which multiplication you were looking for and just quickly like get to it, which was faster than actually doing the math.
All
so
right.
That's how they used to, it was like an ancient calculator, basically.
Yeah,
it was just
nice.
a book with every multiplication, every division, everything you could want. And this guy was sitting in an observatory using it, and he realized the first like 20 pages were very worn down. Like there was like black, there was tears at the bottom. And the last, as you got deeper into the book, the pages became less and less worn until the back where they were almost untouched. And based on that, he started doing these calculations and figured out there's a law called Benford's Law, and you should totally look into this because it's one of those bizarre things that makes you go like, the Holy universe shit. Is really cool.
Cool.
Essentially what it means is if you were to take any group of numbers in the universe, the number of galaxies or the populations of all the world's largest cities or all the world's cities, any number, any group of numbers, you will, every single time, you will find that about 30% of the numbers start with the number 1. And about 17% of the numbers start with the number 2. And slowly it goes down and down, and you get this curve on a graph that planes out like that. And it starts with 1 and it goes all the way down to 9 and just levels off.
Okay.
No one knows why, but
all systems,
all digits. If you take a group of numbers and find the averages,
and they got to be of the same sort of like theme or
yeah, right. And so they've used this to find voter fraud in elections. You can use this for all kinds of crazy shit. You just gather up all the data of a specific subset of digits, and you will find that it's not like it's some complex equation that gets you there. It's just that about 30% of the numbers will start with the number 1. Whether those numbers are in the billions, like if you... whether the numbers are in the hundred thousands, like I said with city capitals, if you were to take all the world's capital cities and add up the populations, most of them would start with the number 1. The next closest would be the number 2, and so on down to 9. It's very strange.
No, that makes sense. In a world as like constrained as this one, where most things, whether you started at the lowest point and went to the highest, or however took it all as a whole, I think most things are going to start in single digits. But what about if you start by counting first stars, and then you count planets, and then you count, progressively higher and higher numbers. So you would it would automatically start you in billions and then go up. But then again, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
You're going to have a digit that's in the ones first. I mean, I kind of wonder if you can even get around that.
Yeah.
It seems to be pretty solid.
But it's also cool that just across the board,
that's
everywhere, it's always the same curve.
And it's always about 30% beginning with the entry level numbers.
Always the number 1, 30%. So whether that's 100,564 or, the next highest batch, 17% of numbers will all be 2,455,000,
Right.
264. It's just the first number that's a number 2. It's not across the board, similar numbers. It's very strange. So
that's interesting.
Anyways, we're just about at our time limit for the day. I feel like we talked about all kinds of shit today.
Yeah, we did. That was kind of fun. We didn't talk about news reporting. What millennials want from the news.
Next time.
We'll do that next time.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.